I'm Marcel Patillo, and I'm a filmmaker and YouTuber. My class on Skillshare just launched. It's all about post-production in DaVinci Resolve, and guess what? Today, I'm sharing an exclusive sneak peek with you. Stay tuned. So now we'll start with lesson 3, where we'll go over the UI of DaVinci Resolve. And the first thing you'll see when you click on the DaVinci Resolve icon is the loading screen. Now, DaVinci Resolve, like I said in previous lessons, is an all-in-one, one-stop shop for everything post-production. With that comes a little bit to learn with the different various tabs, and the first page you'll see is the project manager. And here is where you'll manage any projects that you're currently working on, have worked on in the past. You can see that I have a couple different databases here of projects, and this one in particular is made just for Skillshare to keep things organized. Now, if you right-click in here, you can make a new project, you can make a new folder if you want to organize a series of projects under one folder. You can import a project that maybe a different editor has sent you, or you can restore a project archive, which we'll get into that in future classes. But the project archives can be very, very useful and helpful. And so the first thing I'll do is just click on this untitled project. It's a great way to start any new project. And by default, it's got us in 1080p at 24 frames a second. So we'll click on that, and the first page that we'll see is the cut page. Now, the cut page is not generally where you'll start. Where you'll actually start is in the media page. And this is where you can access your hard drives to bring media in to the media pool. And the media pool you can actually access on any tab in DaVinci Resolve, which is extremely helpful because you never know when you need to bring in that little clip or that little sound effect or that logo to either animate or manipulate. Across the bottom, you'll see all the different tabs that you can get into in DaVinci Resolve. And that's what I mean when I talk about the all-in-one, one-stop shop for everything post-production. Because here you have your media pool where you can bring in media from your hard drives. And then you have your cut tab where you could quickly cut clips if you're doing something that needs to be done rather quickly without a lot of finesse or flair. Then you have your edit tab where you can bring in clips into your timeline, and you see that you still have your media pool here to the left, as I mentioned before. And then you have your Fusion tab, which is for VFX and more advanced compositing or animation. Again, you have your media pool at the top left where you can always access the content that you have in your project. You have your color tab where you can color grade and color correct and add style to your videos. Again, you also have the media pool up here on your top left if you want to access any clips and bring them into your project. You have your Fairlight tab, which is all audio. This is a one-stop shop for everything audio. It is literally what they call in the music industry a digital audio workstation, where you can have effects and plugins and VSTs and virtual instruments, and you can record in here if you want to do any ADR or voiceovers. You have mixing controls and dynamic controls of noise gates and compressors and limiters. It's an amazing, amazing tab for audio, and you can really fine-tune and do great sound design thanks to this tab. And again, in the top left, you have your media pool where you again can access any of your content. And then at the end, you have your deliver tab where you can deliver in so many various formats, which we'll get into later, the importance of knowing what you're exporting to, why you're exporting, what the end result is to be, and what the end location is. So if we come back over to the media tab, I'm actually going to bring in some footage. And you can see in my hard drive list to the left that I've got all my hard drives here, but I actually want access to my desktop, and I want it fast. I don't want to have to dig through my folder structure. So I can just right-click in this list and add new location. And then I can go up here to my desktop and click select folder. And now I'll have my desktop in this list, and I can go up to Skillshare where I have my Bronson project. And I'm going to add this footage folder to my media pool. The best way to do that to stay organized is if you right-click, you could just add folder into media pool, but then it would add the contents into the media pool without really any organization. So I'm going to go to add folder and subfolders into media pool, create bins. And this way when it adds the media to the project, it'll actually create folders or subfolders if there's subfolders within this one folder. So if I click this, it'll now ask me, do I want to change my timeline frame rate to the frame rate of the footage? And for now, I do. So now I know that all my footage and my timeline are at the same frame rate, which is 29.970. And all this is 4K footage. I mean, maybe some of it might be 2K, but I believe it's all 6K from the Blackmagic 6K Pro. And it's great stuff. I love this. This was a really fun shoot to do. And if I wanted to add more music, I could go to this master clip over to the left in my folder structure, and then come to my music for this project, right click, and add folder and subfolders into media pool, create bins. And now we have our footage in one folder, our music in another folder. And if I go back to master, and then I can come over to edit, and I can either right click and go to timelines and create new timeline. And this will give us options, like we can name this timeline. Let's name it Bronson, because that is the guy in the video. And if you want to specify certain things about your project or your timeline, you can deselect use project settings and then come over to format, and you can change it to whatever you want. If you want it to be 2K or 4K or even 8K, you can do it there and even change your frame rate from here as well. You have some monitor and output and color options as well, but from here, everything looks fine, so I'm gonna hit create, and you'll see over in our media pool in the edit tab, we now have a timeline. Now, that timeline's already open in front of us right here, and now we can get to work. So if I go to my footage and I want to bring in, let's bring in a really good looking clip. Let's go with this one here. So if I double click on this clip, I can now preview it in my previewer here. And I can scrub through and I can pick which portion of this clip I want to use by maybe going through, and let's say right here looks good. I can hit I on the keyboard to make an in point, and then drag this further out and hit O to make an out point. And then if you hover over the preview window, you'll see two icons on the bottom. This is a little video clip and this is a little waveform. And if I want, I could just drag in the whole clip, which will give me the video and audio. But in a lot of cases, I really just want to drag in just the video. And in this case is one of those. So I'll just go to this little video clip here, and then I can just drag in the video portion of this clip, and then we can play through that really easily. And so around this in the edit tab, you have your media pool to the left, you have your toolbox under that on the left, which is where your effects would lie. You have video transitions, audio transitions, any title animations you may use, and you can scrub through these and preview them, which is really cool. You have generators like grayscale or any solid backgrounds you may want to make, even some little effects here like noise gradient. And then you have effects that you may use, like this little binoculars look if you want to seem like some kind of spy, or a CCTV, border glitch, digital glitches. And then you have open effects, which is like blurs and more advanced effects that you'll find in Fusion. And over to the right, you'll see we have a mixer, so you can always level your audio or check your audio and make sure that it's level. You have some audio controls like the mixing volume fader. You can change how your audio is panned, and you don't really have effects control in the edit tab, but there is enough control there to really finish out an edit before you go to polish. And over to the right, you have the inspector, which is where you'll find all your video properties and ways to manipulate your video footage. And the inspector tab is pretty much in every single tab except for color. And here is where you could zoom, or you could pan across and change position. You could rotate if things are off-centered. I'm just gonna go ahead and reset these. And it's even got really cool functions like cropping. And when I first started using Resolve, I was like, that's kind of weird that you have such an accessible cropping tool. But then I find myself using it all the time, and I'm like, God, that's so genius that they put that in there. And one of my favorite tools in the edit tab is dynamic zoom, which is just nasty. With one click, now I can play this, and it's actually zooming back as I'm pushing forward. And if I were to swap this, you would see that now it's zooming in even faster. So it's just a really cool and easy way to kind of do a nice little push in or push back in any of your clips. And if I turn that off for now, you have some other modes like compositing modes, you have stabilization, lens correction, retime, and scaling. So last but not least, right above your timeline, you have these tools that are kind of commonly used tools in editing. Trim tool is really nice because I can now trim through the clip without moving the clip. I can leave it where it is. So if I do have a lot of clips stacked on top of each other, I don't have to kind of move this around and then elongate it and then now shorten this end. You know, instead of doing all that, I can just grab the trim tool and scoot to a more preferred place in that clip. You have a dynamic trim, which is really nice, and a blade tool, which if you hit B, which two of my favorite keyboard shortcuts are A for your normal cursor and then B to cut. I tend to use those the most. And with B, you can cut pretty much on any cursor as long as your snap is on. So that again is in this tool menu above the timeline. So make sure your snap is on. I turn that off a lot and then forget that it's off, and then I go to cut something and I end up kind of getting close to the cursor, but then it's not on. But if you have your snap on, then you can easily just hover around the cursor, and if you press cut, it'll cut. You have overwrite clip and insert clip, so you can easily swap clips with another clip. So if I wanted to click on, let's say this clip, and then swap that one. Now it would drop that in place of where the other clip was. And then of course here you have snapping, linking, and locking. And then at the end of this, you have zoom in and out. So you can zoom in and out on your timeline if you need to see a little more detail, or if you want to make a very fine kind of fade in on a certain amount of seconds and you need to zoom in to see that. That's very easily done there. And then to your left, you have a really nice tool, which is your timeline view options. And here, like let's say your computer's a little sluggish. Right now, we have film strip view. But I could go to thumbnail view, where it would give me less visuals on my timeline, making it easier for my computer to compute the timeline as it sweeps across. Or if your computer doesn't even like that at all, you can just go to single view and it won't give you any imagery. It'll just give you the bar. And it makes it a little bit harder to edit, but if you're on a slower computer, that can be really helpful. And then of course, moving down, you have the same type of tools for your waveforms, different ways to view your waveforms if you had audio pulled in. And then you have your track height. So if you need all the tracks to be bigger, video or audio, you can easily do that there. All right, so now that we've gone over the Edit tab, I want to jump over to the Cut tab, just to mention that the Cut tab is used to cut a little bit faster. You see that there's no audio properties here, and there really won't be much you can do with audio in this tab. It's really just for cutting. Like if you have a very long interview and you need to cut out spaces in between, or if you have a bunch of content that you need to really consolidate, the Cut page is great to do that. But me, in general, I love to use the Edit tab for everything because I like to see all my assets. I like to see where I have the video, where I have my transitions, where I have my audio, and it's pretty rare that I'm taking an extremely long video and cutting it down to super short. And even if so, I'd probably still use the Edit tab because for some reason there's peace of mind in seeing all the properties and all the assets in one screen. But for now, let's head on to the next lesson and I'll see you guys there.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe to stay up to date on all of our latest videos.